Hi, I'm Angie with Core Star Pilates, and today's exercise is Swan. Swan, it's an extension exercise, so you're going to use your entire posterior chain to help hold your shape as you rock back and forth. There's also ab work, so don't leave them out. You want to think about using your abs to help pull your pelvis up towards your ribs so that you can help, again, maintain that shape. So the shape you're thinking about, if you think about the bottom of a rocking chair, that kind of bow shape on the rail, that's what you want to look for. So let's do it. So let's come on to your tummy here, like so. And like breaststroke prep, your forearms are going to start down, but we're going to slide them a little bit further away from the body. You are going to put a little bit of weight into your hands, but you want to try and do as much as you can from glutes, abs, and your back. So legs are going to go a little wide. I like heels towards each other, toes apart. We're going to push up and we're going to find this swan shape. So this is where pulling that pelvis up towards the ribs helps find this lovely shape. I'm going to fire my glutes. I'm going to lift my legs. That's going to help tilt me forward. I'm going to keep this bow shape, and then I'm going to push back up. So this is going to be a very slow rock kind of exercise where I'm just maintaining this bow shape as I lift my legs and then I push up. I like an exhale to lift and an inhale to push up. We'll do that one more time. Exhale, lift those legs up, tilting forward. Inhale, push up, and then exhale all the way back down to your mat. Hands under shoulders. Push yourself to all fours, round your spine, push back to shell, and that is Swan. So how do you break down Swan? Well, you can always go back to breaststroke or breaststroke prep and start with that, just getting the sternum off of the mat without taking the low ribs off the mat. So that's always a good place to go back to. Once you feel comfortable with that, then you can start going into a deeper extension. So let's come on to tummies. And for this practice, you can go, this really depends on how your hips like this. So you can be parallel, you can be with the legs out wide, heels towards each other, toes apart. So remember breaststroke prep, you are lifting here. The hands are a little bit closer to the shoulders, elbows are staying down, or for breaststroke, you'll be lifted and you'll be doing your full breaststroke. So that's always a good place to start. With Swan, you want the arms out just a little bit further, and sometimes the first time you come up, you might need to readjust, and that's fine. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to lengthen out. I've got my glutes on. I've got my abs on. I'm kind of pulling my belly button away from the mat a little bit, and I'm lengthening out the back of my neck, and I'm looking straight down at the mat. So just like breaststroke prep, I'm going to lift up to my low ribs are still on the mat, and then I'm going to continue lifting up. I'm going to push into my hands now and start lifting more. So even though I am pushing with my hands, I'm also using my glutes and my abs to help lift the front of my pelvis away from the mat. My pubic bone is staying down on the mat, and I'm lifting the front of my pelvis away. So here's the difference, right? So this is abs and buns on. This is abs and buns off. Maybe you see how that goes really deep into my low lumbar spine rather than being here. And then I'm going to come back down. Now, a little thing to say here is if you're somebody who has extension in your lumbar spine and you can do this all day long and it doesn't bother your spine, more power to you. But I do want to challenge you to try and find your glutes and your abs and see if you can lift the front of your pelvis away from the mat and see how this changes that exercise for you. So it becomes a little bit more abdominal work and a little bit more glute work. And then, like I said, so just start there with that practice. Lifting up as high as you can go, keeping the pubic bone down and finding this extension. So that's the first place to start. Then we're going to come down. I like stacking my hands, bringing the forehead down on my hands, and then I'm going to find my glutes. So I'm going to squeeze my buns and I'm going to lift my legs up. So this is very similar to swimming prep, right? Where we were just focusing on lifting the legs. So I'm going to exhale, I'm going to squeeze the buns and lift those legs and then lower back down. So this is how we're going to start layering in and putting them together to find that rocking. Squeeze the buns and lift and lower down. So now let's see if we can put that together. So arms out, start with the upper body. So find your swan shape. Now this is where you want to try and keep the swan shape. So what's going to initiate me going forward is using my glutes to lift my legs, and that's going to push me forward. So I'm using my glutes, I'm using my hamstrings to lift those legs up high. And then I'm going to push back up. So I'm not going to come all the way down, right? Lift the legs. Exhale, lift the legs. Let it tilt you forward. Inhale, push back. Let's try that one more time. Exhale, lift those legs. Tilt forward. Inhale, push back. And then come all the way down. And I always like taking my spine in the opposite direction. So a nice cat spine, or push back into shell. And that is how you can break down swan. How do you take the slow rock swan and make it a little more challenging? We start with a catch and release, and once you feel comfortable with that, then we go into a full rock. So we'll try it. So catch and release is kind of what it sounds like. You start up nice and tall, you release, rock down, rock back up, and catch yourself. And that's just to get you in the idea of being able to rock back and forth. And then when you go to a full rock, you may not have the same kind of height because you're going to try and keep the arms up. And depending on any asymmetrical body issues going on, you may not have a even rock. You know, mine's probably going to be a little wonky because I've got one glute that's a little bit stronger than the other. I certainly have a rotation in my pelvis. So sometimes that affects how even I rock. So we'll go with it and see what happens. So catch and release first. Let's come on down to your mat. Find your starting position. So again, legs out wide maybe, hands in front of shoulders, and abs are on, buns are on, and we're going to lift up. Let's start with a slow rock just to get a feel for how you hold your posterior chain on in order to hold this bow shape. Now catch and release. You might come up a little bit higher. You're going to reach your arms out and catch. In here, use your exhale to lift your legs. Try it one more time. There. Okay, so that is catch and release. Now a full rock, like I said, mine might be a little wonky. I'm going to start with that catch and release first, just to get into that height, and then go into a full rock. I will probably not talk much because it is kind of challenging to do the full rock. I like an exhale to lift the legs, inhale to come up. And you're going to see it's going to be a little small, and that's okay, right? All right, so full rocking. Here we go. So we're going to come up. I like finding that catch and release first. There we go. Full rock. And there you go. Cat spine after is always nice. And that was how you progress a slow rock swan. What about props? Well, props are a great way to add a different element into swan. So I'm not going to say it's necessarily going to make it harder or easier. It depends on the prop you're using and what your focus is with that particular prop. So one way of doing it, you could use sliders, you could use a roller, you could use a ball, is to bring something underneath your arms when your arms are overhead. So it puts your arms in a slightly different position. I wouldn't do that other than with the upper body only or the slow rock. So how that looks, and I'm going to need to actually move my mat back a little bit here with the sliders. So sliders, you know, it depends what kind of floor surface you have. I love these furniture gliders for carpeting. If you have hardwood floors, you can absolutely use like a towel, any kind of cloth that would slide on your floor works lovely. So arms overhead, and here you could go palms facing in. Find your swan position, and then you're just going to push into your hands and lift up, and you just slide your arms in and out. You could do this with a ball. You could do this with your arms on a roller. So anything that would roll underneath your arms would work for this. And like I said, you could do a slow rock with this. I would not attempt a catch and release or a full rock with the arms overhead, because you're kind of hoping that you land, and that might be a little more challenging. And then another thing you can do is use a prop underneath the pubic bone to create, it's a physics term, a fulcrum, right? So that you can rock back and forth. It's going to give you a bigger range of motion, and it's going to give you a little bit of chest work and maybe a little bit more glute work on this. So a ball, a roller, maybe some stacked stability discs, or a Bosu are all wonderful things you can do for Swan. So what that looks like, and again, you got to find your balance point. So again, think fulcrum, right? So for me, it's about at my pubic bone. I'm going to take my arms, again, a little bit wide. I'm going to find my extension, lifting my legs up, and I'm going to use my glutes to tilt forward. And this is where I could get to go further, and then I push back. So a lot of glutes to lift my legs up. Lifting my legs up is what's tilting me forward. I'm letting that drive how far I go, rather than just bending my arms, keeping that bow shape. And there's that. And as always, I love a cat spine after doing a swan. So that's a great way of taking props and incorporating it into that swan exercise. I hope I've given you the inspiration to include swan in your practice at home. As always, if you take a photo or a video of you doing swan and post it on Facebook or Instagram, tag us at CoreStar Pilates and use the hashtag RealBodiesDoingPilates, and we'll share your posts on our feeds. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you again.